In today's lesson, we are going to look at the linear function. So you should remember this from Algebra 1. This should all be review for you. But we're just going to look at some of the basics of a linear function. So first thing, what is the linear function? Most people's brains, memories go to that y equals mx plus b. So anything in that form. So for example, I could have 3/5 x minus 2. So that is something in the form of the linear function. You could also have x plus y equals 7. The thing that they have in common is that the x value technically has exponent 1. We don't write exponent 1, so it looks like it just doesn't have any exponents. And then looking at what is the linear function, sometimes it's helpful to look at what is not the linear function. So anything with an exponent higher than 1, or just anything other than 1, so like x squared, that's not the linear function. Y equals 1 over x. So if x is in the denominator, that is not the linear function. That technically would be x to the power of negative 1. Or like y equals square root of x. None of those are the linear function. So we want to look for equations in this form. So our first example is looking at evaluating the linear function. So let's read this. The growth rate of a sample of Bermuda grass is given by this function. A lot of story problems in algebra. Hey, they give you a function, an equation. So before I even keep reading, I'm going to rewrite that. So f of x equals 5.9x plus 3.25. Okay, so where f of x is the total height in inches. Okay, so I'm going to label that. Height measured in inches. Okay, total height in inches, x days after an initial measurement. Okay, so they told us what x equals, days. How tall? So how tall? They're asking us, hey, what's the height? Oh, that's supposed to be a question mark, okay. Is the sample after 3 days? So they gave us the value of x. So to evaluate this, we are going to look at the function when the x value is 3, which basically just means, hey, plug in 3 for x. So all we have to do, 5.9 times 3 plus 3.25, and we should get 20.95. So that means after 3 days, the height is 20.95 inches. In this unit, we are going to review all the different forms of the linear function. Today, we are just looking at standard form. So write down ax plus by equals c. Standard form, find your equal sign. X and y are on the same side. So an example could be 2x plus 3y equals 4. That is in standard form. There are 2 rules in standard form, and they are there just to assure that everyone has the same equation. So the leading coefficient, a has to be greater than 0, which just means it needs to be positive. It cannot be negative. And then also, a, b, and c, all of these numbers, they have to be integers, which means no fractions. Okay, now we're going to look at 2 examples. I'm just going to split my screen in half, where we are going to convert into standard form. So the first one, 3y equals 2x plus 8. This is not in standard form because x and y are on opposite sides of the equal sign. I need to get x and y on the same side. So Let's look. I'm going to subtract 2x. Moving across an equal sign, you have to think opposite. So here this cancels, and then I'm going to rewrite these kind of next to each other. So negative 2x plus 3y equals 8. All right, x and y on the same side, but there's something wrong with this. It's not following one of the rules. That front number is negative. What we can do is multiply everything by -1 in the equation. As long as you multiply everything in the equation on both sides, you're not technically altering the essence of the equation, just the way that it looks. So multiplying by -1 simply means just change the sign of everything. So negative 2x goes to positive 2x, and then it goes to minus 3y, and it goes to a -8. We've now converted that linear equation into standard form. Okay, let's do one more. 3/5 y equals -1/2 x minus 1. All right, so yes, we have fractions, but no worries. First thing, let's just get, I got y, I have x. Let's get x onto the other side. So let's add 1/2 x on both sides so that it cancels here. So now to rewrite this, I'm going to write 1/2 x plus 3/5 y equals -1. Hey, my front number is positive, so that's good, but I have this fraction. So what are the denominators in my fraction? If I multiply this by 2, it'll get rid of my fraction, but this one I'd have to multiply by 5. So if I multiply the whole equation by 10, what it's going to do is cancel out both fractions at the same time. So multiplying everything. 10 times 1/2. Think about multiplying 10 to the numerator. So 10 times 1 is 10 over 2x plus 10 times 3/5. So 10 times 3 is, 30 over 5y equals 10 times -1 is -10. So now divide. 10 divided by 2, so I've got 5x. 30 divided by 5 plus 6y equals -10. Converted to standard form. All right, last example, we're going to look at graphing a linear function, but we're going to use the intercepts. So what does an intercept mean? An intercept is, let's say if I've got a line, it's the point that crosses the y-axis, or it's the point that crosses the x-axis. So what we're going to do is find our y-intercept, find our x-intercept, and then when you have two dots, you just have to connect them, and we'll be able to graph our function. All right, so let's think about this. On the y-axis, all the points on the y-axis, what's true about them is that x equals 0. And then if you think about all of your points on the x-axis, what's true about those? Y is always equal to 0. So we're going to use that concept to find our intercepts. So -4x plus 6y equals 24. Here is our function, our equation. Okay, so I want to find, let's find the x-intercept first. Okay, so x-intercept is when y is 0. So I'm going to rewrite that equation, -4x plus 6, but instead of y, x-intercept is when y is 0. So I'm going to plug in 0. All right, and then solve for x. So 6 times 0 is 0. So -4x equals 24. And then divide both sides by -4. So x equals -6. So what that means is that this equation has a point on the x-axis at -6. So I'm going to put a dot right there. All right, I'm going to move this over. We'll move it back for the graph. Let's look at finding the y-intercept. All right, so for x-intercept, we plug in 0 for y. So what are we going to do for the y-intercept? We're going to plug in 0 for x. So -4 times 0 plus 6y equals 24. And solve for y. So multiplying by 0 cancels that out. 6y equals 24. Divide both sides by 6, so y equals 4. All right, so y equals 4. That's 4 on the y-axis. So find 4 on the y-axis. We have 2 dots, connect them. We have now graphed this function, -4x plus 6y equals 24, using intercepts. So there is your first lesson, introducing the linear function. Good luck.